The rationale is going to be the trickiest part because the maximum marks you can get for this is 9. And looking back, the maximum marks you can get for the cost plan is 4. The maximum marks you can get for the Gantt chart is 6. So because you can get 9 marks for this, it's going to require quite a bit more. So rationale for project planning decisions demonstrate a thorough and perspective consideration of costs, risk, and benefits. What I would do, I would put this into a category by itself. So I would say this would be a heading by itself, and then you mention cost, risk, and benefits for the things that you've chosen for your specific scenario. For example, so if we do cost, risks, and benefits, the cost of using a cloud server is going to be much less initially compared to buying the servers upfront. The cloud cost is typically, let's say, 50 to 100 pounds per month versus buying a server that costs 10, 20, 30 grand right up front, right? So you need to mention cost of different things or cost of the project overall. Mention cost in a way that is directly linked to your scenario. Risks, for example, if you're using your own servers, the risk of that is your cloud engineer, your one cloud engineer that you have might not have all the skills necessary to do exactly what you need to do. If a problem comes up, they might not have the exact skills to solve that problem versus using a cloud service, let's say Google, GCP, Amazon Web Services, or Microsoft Azure. Microsoft, Google, and Amazon, they have hundreds and hundreds of cloud engineers working for them. And not saying that your cloud engineer is bad, but the benefit of having Google and these larger companies do it is that they have more people on hand. You don't have to manage anything. You simply click a few buttons, tell the service what you want to do, and it does it in the background. You don't have to manage anything within reason, of course. So that was just one cost, risk, and benefit of my specific system. So again, please go through and talk about your system, things associated to your cost, your risk, and your benefits. So even though you've mentioned cost, risk, and benefits, you need to think about the rationale. So the rationale is simply asking, why did you do it this way? So you need to say something along the lines of exactly, there's no one way that fits everything. So you word it the way you want. This is my interpretation. So for example, I would say I've chosen to use the cloud servers because we have teams working all across the nation. The project we're working on needs really good scalability. So we might go, for example, one day using 10,000 people going to the website, to the next day we have 1 million people going to the website because it's Christmas, for example, and the sales might go up. So you need to decide what the rationale is, the why you're doing this option. So why is the cost this high? Why have you chosen this? Even though you have the risk and you have the benefits, why have you done it that way? Next, we have order and timing of tasks. But I think order and timing of tasks can be linked or paired directly to dependencies and prerequisites because it's all about tasks. For example, let's just say the way that this is laid out now is the way it's going to be done. So the upgrade of infrastructure. Why do we need to upgrade the infrastructure? The infrastructure needs to be updated because the PCs that we have, the network that we have needs to be updated. It's too slow. It's too old. It won't be able to efficiently manage the system that we have. Why do we do the backend database before we do the user interface? Well, the user interface needs to be linked to the backend database. The users clicking on buttons and putting their names and usernames and passwords in needs to have a database where that information is stored, right? Why do we need to do backend database user interface before booking system? Well, booking system is going to be used by customers, by clients, by people going to the website. If this is a website, for example, right? So there's no way we can have a textual user interface or like a command line interface on a website. We need to have Windows icons, menus, and pointers. So that's a terminology that people usually call WIMP, Windows icons, menus, and pointers. So users can interact with the database in a way that's sensible and useful for them because there's no way anyone that goes to a website would want to interact with a website or a database using a command line interface. Next, we have selection and allocation of resources. And please keep in mind, resources here does not mean the computers and things that you have. Resources here means the people that you have. So if I go back to my exam paper that I have are, let me quickly zoom out. I've got a software engineer, a senior software engineer. I've got a junior software engineer. I've got a database engineer. I've got a network engineer. And finally, I have a cloud architect. Please keep in mind, this is your rationale for your project. So if I have a look at one of these things, for upgrading the infrastructure, who would I use for this? I'm just going to give you my opinion here and maybe justify why. So to upgrade the infrastructure, I would go with the cloud architect and I would also go with the network engineer because the infrastructure is probably going to be the IT resources that you have. The network engineer would definitely know about routers, switches, PCs that you'd possibly need, but the architect, because they're going to be designing for now and potentially for the future, they might also know what hardware and software might be required. So that's why I would use those two people. Now, again, you don't have to use just one person for each task. You can use two people. And to be fair, you might as well use two people. It says module one, backend database. For backend database, bear with me here. I'm going to be scrolling back and forth quite a bit because I don't remember all the names. So for backend database, I would use obviously the database engineer, and I might also use someone like the junior software engineer, or I would use a senior software engineer. But the database engineer must be the person that you choose for a task like that. For user interface, I don't remember the names of the people, but I'm probably going to use the junior software engineer and the senior software engineer. For business information, 100% the cloud architect. Cloud architects are going to have an overall picture of the entire system, and maybe again either the project manager, which was I think you're involved in, is £200 per day or something like that. And I would also go for maybe the senior software engineer. For module 4 booking systems, I would probably go with the not the network engineer but the database engineer, and I would also go with the senior software engineer. Reason being, the senior software engineer is probably going to be doing the implementation on the front end side, and the database engineer will need to be checking if things are being written and pulled from the database accordingly. Now, going back again, don't just pick the person because it says that they're a junior software engineer or it says that they're a database engineer. Pick the person based on the task that you have at hand. So quite clearly, a database engineer would probably be well suited or best suited for managing the database stuff. However, that's not to say that no one else knows database stuff, because the senior software engineer, the senior software engineer, perfect, knows SQL. SQL is a database system used by projects all over the world. So please have a look at the job title, the core skills, and the previous experience, and that's going to give you an indication of which person should be used for which task.